Have you looked around lately? Assuming you want to scale up your backyard farming onto a commercial scale, do you think you would have enough land close to you to be able to send your backyard farming there and at the same time juggle your daily work with your commercial level farming? That has become a reality now. We find ourselves in an era where the real estate industry is aggressively competing with the agricultural industry for use of land. Well, today we want to delve into the topic of intensive farming. I have Fred with me right here at the studio, and I want you to pay rapt attention because he's going to share some deep knowledge on how we'll be able to scale up intensive farming, doing it right, and a lot more that we should know if we want to be able to exist in this era where, like I said, the real estate industry is aggressively competing with our industry for space. Stay tuned, I shall be back in a minute with Fred. Welcome back. I have Fred with me to delve straight into this all-important topic, especially in our time now of intensive farming. Hi, Fred.
Hi, Nadia.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Well, today we are talking about intensive farming, and I believe it has become very prudent, especially in this era where houses, buildings, factories are springing up like magic out of the ground everywhere you look.
Yeah.
How does that affect those of us in this agricultural space?
Obviously, to do agriculture, at a certain level, and in our continent, you need land. So land becomes the first thing. I know there are new technologies out there, the aquaponics and so on, the urban farming styles, where we're trying to minimize the land that we have to produce a lot. So definitely land is important, and the rise of infrastructures and buildings is not just known to us in Africa or in Ghana, it's everywhere, which is definitely pushing we the farmers further and further inside the hinterlands. But that also comes with a lot of challenge. It makes farming more expensive and sort of oppose our mission here in farming in Africa, which is drawing more of the youth into it because they don't want to stay in the village. So it comes with its own challenge. But it is definitely something that is affecting us, but it's also something that it's a trade-off. We need the infrastructures, we also need food, so how do we coexist? And I think that is when intensive farming comes in.
I see. So before you even talk about what intensive farming is, can you educate us on maybe the types of farming that even exist and why we are deciding to focus on intensive farming?
So when you're in the livestock industry, you have the intensive farming, then you have the extensive farming, then you have the semi-intensive, which is a blend of both intensive and extensive system of farming.
So we don't have semi-extensive. Let me ask how it might be a question on somebody's mind.
The goal is intensive.
So,
do a bit of that gradually and get yourself there. Like do 50%, 60% and get there.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so your last question to it is like, why intensive?
Yeah.
I think it's the best way to utilize, the small piece of land that we have. And it goes back to even where you are in the land system. When you go to South Africa, I remember I was in South Africa last year and I met somebody who I introduced myself as a farmer. And he looked at me and he said, how can you be a farmer, such a young guy? Right? And I was like, do I need to be old? He says, hey, then you're rich. And I was like, no, I'm not yet rich, but I'm getting there. And I asked him why, and he said, how many lands do you have?
I see.
So in South Africa, if you call yourself a farmer, then you have thousands of hectares of land.
Wow.
Right? Because of the way their land system is.
Why is that easy to get land in South Africa?
That is a whole topic on its own.
I see.
But I think lands, and I mean the there's no free land. Like you can walk on a land that's not fenced. Like everybody's land is fenced.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
if you come from a family where your father doesn't have a fenced land,
Yeah.
you have to go and buy. And I think lands are also sold in such a large quantity that if you're
Wow.
not really coming from a good background,
You
you
can't
can.
afford it.
So it's not in Ghana where a family owns maybe just 5 acres, 10 acres, or even 1 acre,
Yeah.
and you can go and buy it,
Yeah.
right? So the lands are shared in bigger sizes and
I
not
see.
in smaller sizes like we have in West Africa.
Wow.
So if you're a youth in South Africa and you're trying to go into farming,
Mhm.
it's not that easy for you.
Yeah.
Whilst in West Africa, we have access, but we have access in small scales.
Yes.
And that is why we here have been doing more of the intensive. So
Yeah.
it is time for South Africa to actually realize that, hey, if we are able to get one, we can still become farmers, 1 acre, 2 acres,
Yeah.
instead
Yeah.
of always seeing the thousands of hectares only as the farmers. Right. So there's a bit of contrast there.
This is an important message for our audience in South Africa watching us. In case, like Fred said, you are thinking of huge sizes before you go into farming as a South African youth. No, this video is for you. That is why I need you to pay attention, because he has already started spilling the nuggets of wisdom already. And this bullet went straight to South Africa. Please continue for me.
Yeah, I think we both have something to learn. So the South Africans can learn how to utilize small sizes of land
Yeah.
to actually cultivate a lot, right?
I
So, for example, I'm yet to meet, a young, maybe black South African who has a boa goat farm, because
Wow.
they don't have most of them don't have the size of land that they need to rear the South African style
Yeah.
of rearing boa goats.
And that's the style they are used to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they
Yeah.
need to learn how West Africans are able to do boa goat on 5 acres, on 1 acre, on
Yeah,
2
1
acres,
acre, yeah.
so that they can also be a goat farmer, just
I
for
see.
example.
Yeah.
So the South African have that to learn from us,
Yeah.
and we also have something to learn from South Africa, which is how do we move from our 1 acre, 5 acres into commercial farm. Right, so it's an exchange of knowledge and a
Definitely.
gap that we need to bridge, and that is why if you even go into our YouTube analysis, you see about 19% of our viewers are coming from South Africa, because for the first time they are seeing that you can do goat farming on this small scale of land,
Yes.
and you can do it this way, and still survive.
Yeah.
So we need to learn from each other, and that's why platforms like this are very important to our continent.
I see. So still on this intensive farming, you have already admitted that the real estate industry keeps pushing us, the agric people, into the hinterlands.
Yeah.
Now, what is the way around it? Should we just accept our fate and say, okay, since infrastructure is also important, let's move? Or you think we can find a compromise midway and coexist?
Yeah, I think the idea of agriculture being pushed into the hinterlands is sad, because it's like we're pushing our food out of the city, which is not right, because we need the food before
go to work.
other things, right? And I remember in the midst of our chaos when earlier this year we were asked to move from Brekum and all that. A journalist asked me if I was once the agric minister or in authority, what would I do? And I think what I told him was, I will make sure that every community dedicates a land for agriculture. Right, the same way we do for schools, the same
for
way
parks.
we do for parks.
Yeah, unbelievable.
we do for animals, we do for pets. In the US, you go, there's a dog park where you take your dog there for them to play.
Yeah.
But I think I think it's sad, because everybody talks so honorably about agriculture, but we add so little when it comes to really getting it to the point where it could be sustainable, it could save our lives,
Wow.
So I think, yes, we utilize it. If you even have crops on the land, somebody will come and, excavate it and plant, and that is it. It's not really appreciated. So yes, we are being pushed away. So if you're a farmer watching, then if you want to start a farm or scale, you have no option than to go to the bush.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you can be a farmer and still enjoy the city life, the same way a banker can enjoy a city life and the goodies of the city and still go to work.
yeah,
A farmer can't. A farmer has to go and live in the bush.
yeah.
And that's why, you know, the expectation of a farmer is to have like bushy beards and bushy hair and looking bad, because he's not living in the city, he's in the forest.
Yeah, in the
So,
forest. Yeah.
you know, living with the animals, so you yeah, the animals look in style.
That's a wild
So,
picture.
yes,
Yeah.
because you're disconnected,
Yeah, disconnected.
right? And I
yes.
think that is a problem. But I'm hoping that we will buy the lands early enough, and we'll do it properly, so that even when the community grows to catch up with us, we form part of the community, and that comes with a lot of better and sustainable practices that we can put, and infrastructures that we can put together. You know, I mean, my farm is about 2 hours from Accra, and I think it's still in a community where it is now. But if you look at the infrastructure and the way it's been set up,
Yeah.
you know, people wouldn't mind building their houses around it because of the way it's been done. So I think that as we go into intensive farming and we put in the work to build it right, we should be able to blend with the residential areas and the upcoming cities.
Now you mentioned something about capacity,
Mm-hmm.
how it's limited in intensive farming.
Mm-hmm.
I still want you to clarify that how can we scale up?
Yeah.
Because I know at the Sementia Learning and Development Farm, you have a cute space which can house 40 goats, because you do mention they only come there to, you know, relax at night.
Yeah.
So assuming if you are in the urban city, capacity, it's in sharp contrast to your ability to scale up.
Yeah.
How do you go about this?
I think when I said the capacity is limited, we were referring to one plot in the city,
Yeah.
right? Not
Yeah.
intensive farming as a whole.
Okay.
So
Not
intensive
okay.
farming doesn't mean you're limited.
in terms of the number
In
of
terms of
animals
number,
you can rear.
No. You can
Oh,
have
wow.
100 acres and still do intensive farming.
Oh,
You know,
wow.
you can have 50 acres and still do intensive farming.
Okay.
The only sort of limitation is the land.
Yes.
So if you have one plot of land, of course you're limited than somebody who has 10 plots of land.
Definitely, yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
in that context, we're talking about somebody who is in the city and has one plot or is doing a backyard for intensive farming.
Mhm.
Obviously, that person is limited as to how much he can grow his stock.
Yeah.
But intensive as a whole doesn't limit you at all. It's just a system, a better system,
Yeah.
actually, for you to be able to scale in
Oh,
our
wow.
continent. Yeah.
And what are some of the other advantages when it comes to intensive farming?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe before that, we can look at what intensive farming truly is.
Why not?
And then from there, we can go into
Sure.
the advantage.
Yeah.
So the intensive farming is basically, let me talk about the extensive, because it's the
Okay.
direct opposite, which
Of
is what we are
intensive.
very used to.
Yeah.
So the extensive is basically what we practice with our small ruminants. And,
Okay.
and even the cattle as well, where we allow them to randomly go and graze,
Yeah.
right? And then, you know, they either come home to sleep or they sleep under the mango,
Mango
tree or whatever. Some even climb up, you know, and
Wow.
sleep on top of the trees when you go to the north.
Okay.
So that's your typical extensive
farming.
growing. The intensive is where you have a dedicated piece of land.
Okay.
Where your feed is done there, your structures is done there, everything that the animals need is done there.
Everything is intentional.
Everything is very intentional,
Wow.
and within a fence, you know, piece of land
Yeah.
or acres of land,
Yeah.
where you say my animals do not move outside this,
Mhm.
and then I intentionally do everything for them. Right. So that is the intensive system of farming.
Okay.
Coming to your question, which is, what are some of the importance of intensive farming?
Yeah.
Like you rightly said, everything is intentional. So your feeding is
Yeah.
intentional. You
Yes.
control what your animals eat.
The control.
Right?
The control, yeah.
If your animal is walking around grazing and you don't know what the animal is eating,
Yeah.
you know, whether it's bad, good, whether it's enough, whether it's not,
Mhm.
then you don't know how to supplement or what to do.
Exactly, yeah.
When you're doing intensive, you know, you're intentionally putting the animal in a pasture and you know what the animal is feeding on.
Yeah.
Even if the animal is just even grazing on the land of a pasture you haven't planted and you just have forage and it's eating, you're able to control the quantity
Yes.
that the animal eats, and then when it comes home, you're able to give him what he needs and
Yes,
so on.
yeah.
So you're able to control the nutrition. Health is key as well.
Definitely.
When your animals are roaming and sleeping under trees, how do you catch them and vaccinate them? How do you, do all those things? So then it becomes an issue. A lot of it has with security as well.
Oh, right.
If you're in a community where your goats are roaming around randomly, it's just a prayer that at the end of the day, they will actually make it home.
Yeah.
And not into somebody's pot.
Yes,
right,
yes.
at the end of the day. So
that's true.
that brings a lot of, losses into it. I think if you're doing business, you don't allow your goods to just roam around without having control over it and protecting it.
Yeah.
So intensive gives you that protection where they are confined. So if somebody's coming in, then it's an intruder.
Yes.
When they are on the streets, then they could be, anytime I go to the north, I count actually how many goats are knocked down on the road, right?
Wow.
Just trying to cross the road. And
Wow.
it's just out there. So when your goat goes out, it's just a prayer that it will come back to you,
That's sad and funny.
Exactly. So it's some of these things you try to prevent, and then the random grazing, then you're also exposing them to snake bites, to scorpion bites, and so on.
That's
So
true.
all these things cut into your profit as a farmer if you're doing an extensive system of farming. But if you're doing intensive, then you're able to do all of that, and it's just better care and management too.
I think so.
When you're doing intensive, you're able to see them, you're able to assess them.
Yes.
Are they eating well? Are they moving well? How is their skin? How is that? And all of those things. So I think it is very important that farmers consider intensive, and with the size of land that we have, we are able to better manage it so that they get what they need from us.
So that they get what they need from us. I also particularly like the light you threw on the control doing intensive farming gives you.
Yeah.
Yes. I think I would ask one last question on this intensive farming style, which you are obviously advocating for now as well. Or?
Yes. Sure.
How do you integrate that with resource management and economic management as well? Yeah.
So when you say resource management,
I'm talking of even your staff, human resource.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the whole idea of the intensive is how do I get more out of the little that I have? So mostly you have a small piece of land.
Yes.
And you want to keep them there and still be able to utilize it. So planning is key. Like you need to plan very well your farm. So just don't stand up and just go and put a structure anywhere and go and buy 20. People that have money always come and they want to start with 100 goats.
Yeah.
And I say, wait, no. Start with something small. They're like, no, but
I can afford.
Yeah. Farming has no formula. You don't you don't need. It's not about your money alone. So don't just stand up and go and do it. You need to plan very well. Same way, like you talked about the real estate, group.
Yeah.
They don't just get up and go and build anywhere. They find the architect to design for them, the plumbers, the carpenters, and all that. Bring all this knowledge together to build something. I think that's the way we do. So we want to utilize the small piece of acres we have to maximize the number of livestock we can get. And if you're able to build well, then utilizing the land is key. Then now you don't even need a lot of stuff. I was at the farm yesterday, and I think you guys were there, so you saw the treatment center. All what we're doing is just trying to ease it, so that even when we have 200 goats, with 2 people, we should be able to manage the entire farm. Because everything is laid down nicely, and you don't need so many people chasing goat to catch them, chasing them to go and eat.
To catch them,
and all of those things. So if you plan better with intensive farming, you're able to manage also the resources much better.
So then it makes economic sense.
Of course, then the fact is, you're not spending so much on land, whether you're renting or buying, but you're actually increasing your yield as well, right?
Yes, that's true.
Yes, your initial capital could be big because of the structure and the planning you're doing,
Yeah.
but then you have a long sustainable business
Yes.
than somebody who is basically not planning and just doing anything else.
On that note, let me remind you that we are actually offering services when it comes to farm setup, right from scratch to the very logical conclusion. If you're a beginner but you don't know where to start, how to start, the whole how to even just do it right, Farming in Africa exists for you. Just pick our contact from our bio, as I always say, and let's get talking. The way we are advocating that you do it right, it would be very painful that you would start on the wrong note and lose all your investment. That's the last thing you want. Fred also mentioned how feed is important, especially when it comes to doing intensive farming right. Need I remind you again that we have the specially formulated livestock feed filled with macronutrients. We've done productions before where we explained that the foraging your animals go out to do, they lack certain minerals, vitamins, especially if the soil even lacks it. So this livestock feed has been specially formulated with all of these nutrients. Even if your animals listen, they need it in the right proportions, and that is why this feed is here for you. Just contact us. We do deliveries here in Ghana. We are also in the northern region. Most of you reach out. By the way, we have a physical shop in Tamale. Just reach out wherever you are and you'll be sorted out. Also, the rains have set in. By now, if you are serious about having a sustainable source of feed for your precious livestock, you should be planting your semencial grass seeds by now. Please contact us for your seeds as well, because you really need it. I'm going back to Fred. He's going to look right into the camera to tell you how it is not too late to start, no matter the land size you have. And who knows, he might throw another nugget of wisdom right at you. Fred, over to you. To the youth who are afraid of starting so small, is it still possible for them to become like Fred?
I think it's always possible.
Great.
You just have to believe it. We all started from somewhere.
Yeah.
So whether it's your backyard, whether it's somebody's uncompleted building, whether it's your uncle's land, just start from there. And as I'm speaking to you, even yesterday I had a discussion. I'm leasing a very small land just to test something, so you to start from somewhere. But dream big. You want to be like me, I also want to be like somebody. So dream to the level at which you see, and then start from what you can afford, right? And then continue with that dream and continue pushing. With hard work, dedication, I think you will get there. We all started from somewhere. Fred, I want to say thank you so much for the knowledge. Yet again, you've come to share with us. We are grateful. On that note, let me remind you that if you need authentic source of good breeding stock to start your farm with, especially if you're interested in getting some of the foreign breeds we import from South Africa, well, look nowhere else than the Sementia Learning and Development Farm. We bring consignments into West Africa almost every quarter. If you are interested in getting some, it's not too late. Just reach out and let's add you to our next consignment, okay? Till we come your way next time with another very educative, informative video, it is bye-bye from us for today. See you in our next video.